Hello and welcome to the second part of Unit 9 Light and Shadows. In the previous part, we talked only about light. So today we're going to talk and learn about shadows, and specifically how shadows are formed and some shadow uses. So, before watching this video, remember that you are going to work with this video and also your my paths are here to be student book and activity book. And as always, remember there's going to be a worksheet so you can check how much you learned from this lesson. Also, there are some extra optional videos that I recommend you watch, and of course add subtitles so you understand in a better way. But before starting with this lesson, let's check what we learned in the previous lesson. So, remember, we discussed about that light is super important, not only for us to see, but for all living beings. Remember, sunlight is part of life for living beings. So, no sunlight, no life. Also, light enters to our eyes so we can see. And of course, there are some uses for lights, as traffic lights or lamps, so we can see when it's dark or we can have more order when we move on streets. So, let's start with our shadow part of the unit. So, let's begin. So, on page 8 and 9, you have this beautiful picture, and of course, we have our friends, and we have these two questions, which are what is the dark shape that is in front of you, and why is the dark shape there? Well, if you know this, fantastic, but if you don't worry, we're going to learn about this today. There are some things that we have to consider. Here we have a light source, in this case, a natural light source. Remember that we discussed in the previous lesson that light can be natural or artificial. In this case, this is natural. And of course, here we have our friends playing volleyball. They are playing beach volleyball, and that's the name of the sport, and the ball. And the dark uh, thing or shape that it's in front of Joe is a shadow, and that is something that it's always there with you. You cannot escape your shadow when it's daytime or when there is light. Of course, we have Dr. Atom uh, chilling, relaxing, enjoying the nice weather and the beach under the beach umbrella and sitting on the deck chair. So remember, uh, something that is important is the light source. Uh, when you have a light source and an object that can block light, that's when shadows are formed. Not all objects can produce a shadow. And something that is interesting and that you have to understand is that light travels in two different ways, which are waves or particles. But the movement of this is only one, and that is a straight direction, right? So that's something that you have to keep in mind. Imagine when you have a laser and you press the button and the laser comes out, you see the laser or the red light um, that goes on a straight direction. What changes the position of this laser is how you move the pointer, but not the light. All right. Something that you can do using the science at home is in a dark room Shine a torch on your hands. You will see the dark shape of your hands on the wall. Try to make different shapes on the wall, right? So let's continue. A shadow is formed when light is blocked. The dark shape is your shadow. The light from the sun cannot shine through you. When you block the light from the sun, your shadow is formed. When an object blocks light, its shadow is formed. No shadow will be formed when there is no light. Remember that. No shadow, no light means no shadow. Okay, so uh, that's something very important. Uh, Now let's go to the activity book. Now you have to do activity 9.3, on which you have to look at the pictures and circle the things with the correct shadow. Pay attention. The object and the shadow can be different. So the correct answers should be the cup, the basketball, and of course the rabbit. All right? Now, on activity 9.4, you have to draw your shadow at different times of the day and then answer the question. Here you have three different times of the day: morning, noon, and evening. And the question is, when is your shadow shortest? If you have problems by drawing yourself or another person, I suggest that you can place an object where there is light and observe this object during the day, at morning, at noon, and at evening. All right, so you complete this information and we can discuss this on the tutorial. Uh, Letter B, read the following sentences, circle true or false. Number 1, when an object blocks light, a shadow is formed. This is true. Number 2, a shadow will be formed when there is no light. And this, of course, is false. Let's continue. Here we have the at glance section. So here we have the information of the unit. Light and shadows. Light needs to enter our eyes for us to see. A shadow a shadow is formed when light is blocked by an object. These are the science words of the unit: light, enter, shadow, block. All right? And of course, you have the self-check with the words that are in the box, which are light, see, and shadow. And we have to complete the sentences with these words. Number 1, light needs to enter our eyes for us to see. Number 2, when an object blocks light, its shadow is formed. Number 3, when there is no light, no shadow will be formed. All right, there is something else that I would like to show you, and this is types of objects. There are many materials in the world which react in a different way to light and light sources, of course. So you have to keep in mind that we're going to talk only about 4 types of objects, or if we are more accurate, types of materials. So we have opaque objects, and this is when light can pass through this object, and of course a shadow forms. We are opaque objects for light because light is blocked by our bodies and shadow is formed. Translucent object. Some light can pass through it, not all of it, but just a little. So there is a shadow, and in the case of the picture that you can see, because of the object is translucent and green, there is a green color on the shadow. Remember, shadows have no color. They are always dark. The color is because of the object and the light that can pass through this object. Transparent object is an object that light can pass completely through it, like glasses or windows. Okay, so no shadow will be formed when light make contact with this object. All light passes through. And of course, reflective objects like mirrors. Light can pass through it. Light reflects or rebounds on it. Okay, so this is something very interesting. I invite you to use a torch or a flashlight and aim to different objects and see what happened, and think which of these objects or materials correspond to what you're aiming, right? Also, something that I would like to tell you is that shadows are quite uh, important because shadows can be used as decoration. When you have vitrol windows or glasses, you can make different arts using light and shadows to make beautiful decorations. In churches, this is something very used, which gives a special touch, in my opinion. Another use that we can give to shadows is to make fun play presentations using only light and a few objects to create a fantastic story. This is something very popular in Asia, uh, and now it's something that has been more popular in the Occident. So you can see a lot of these shadow plays in YouTube. There can be super fun, and you can learn a lot from this. And of course, one of the most popular and more um, uh, easy things to do with shadows is to play with hands, trying to make different shapes and try to recreate objects or animals so we can play with light and shadows. So today we learned that shadows are formed when an object blocks light, right? So when an object blocks light, shadows are formed. Not all objects react the same way to light. So remember that you have the opaque, translucent, transparent, reflective, right? And shadow can have different uses. Something that I can tell you before I forget is that in the past, people used shadow to measure time, and of course, because uh, as you know, the Earth spins on its axis, so that's why we have day and night. And um, using shadows, you can know more or less the time of the day. Okay, so this was used in the past by uh, many civilizations and is still being used today. All right, I hope you had fun today and see you on the next lesson. Bye, compadres.